Sorry, Tish isn't here this morning. She makes it so fun. Oh, thanks. The theme for December is living in wholeness. Today's topic, in the name of wholeness, enriching the world. Our first reading is an excerpt from the Centers for Spiritual Living vision statement. We see a world in which every person lives in alignment with his/her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other, a world in which individuality and collectivity, we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision a world that works for everyone. Next, Thomas More, in Care of the Soul, wrote, ruins like old farm equipment and pastures show us that something remains of beauty when its function has departed. Soul is then revealed. Soul is not about function, it is about beauty. Things suffer as a person would when they are reduced to their functions. Care of the world soul therefore requires that we see things less for what they can do and more for what they are. Let us affirm together, seeing through the eyes of God, I behold beauty and wholeness of the soul in everyone and everything, and in so doing, I enrich the world. How beautiful. Thank you, Reverend Kathleen. And now, I'd like to bring Reverend Kathleen back up.
Going back to the old-fashioned way. So I love this topic of wholeness, because for me it was the mind-blowing concept that really gave me the guide bumps and really helped me know I was in the right community when I first showed up in a community very much like this years ago. Wholeness, living is wholeness. I'd like to start with a story. This is a story about the great detectives Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. So one night they were on their quest of solving these great mysteries. They were out camping. And so after putting up the tent and having a good dinner, they settled in for a good night's sleep. And suddenly in the middle of the night, Holmes wakes up and he nudges Watson and says, Watson, look up, and what do you see? What do you see? Tell me what you see. He said, I see millions and millions of stars. And Holmes said, and what do you deduce from that? And Watson says, well, it tells me there are millions of galaxies and potentially beyond billions of planets. And somewhere in the universe, with so many billions of stars similar to our sun, there is a high probability that there are Earth-like planets that contain life. And so, wow, it means that humanity may not be alone in this vast cosmos. And then he turns to Holmes and he says, so what do you deduce, Holmes? And Holmes looks up and he says, quite. Someone has stolen our tent. So today is a call for a broader perspective. Like Watson, he was really into the broader perspective, right? And Holmes was down into the practical things of life, which is also important. But today we're looking at the broader perspective. And Ernest Holmes, another Holmes, by the way, Ernest Holmes, called this broader perspective the perception of wholeness. the perception of wholeness. And one of his famous quotes is, the perception of wholeness is the consciousness of healing. So this is the consciousness that we all want to attain, because it's the healing consciousness. And it's the consciousness from which we create. So this perception of wholeness. And so as we develop this perception, we are therefore, by being this broad, expanded being, owning that, we are enriching the world with higher consciousness, and from that higher consciousness comes higher action, right? Because that's how it works, as within, so without. And we are also caring for the soul of the world. Caring for the soul of the world. Don't you love that quote that was from Thomas More that reminded us that it's not about function, it's about who we are in truth, and to remember that when we're with others. And for those of us who are more task-oriented, it's really about remembering that. Okay, yeah, it's about tuning in to each other, the beauty and the glory and the goodness in each other. So those are the two things I'm covering today. I'm covering the perception of wholeness and caring for the world soul. So the first one, perception of wholeness, I have another story, and this is a true story. It's a story about Rusty Schweikert. Anybody know who that is right off the top of their heads? It's interesting what's happened over the years. Well, he was the lunar module pilot who in 1969 was on the Apollo 9 mission, which was the first lunar module flight with a crew aboard. And Rusty, during the flight, was the one who performed the first spacewalk. And if you remember him out in his spacesuit, tethered onto the spacecraft, while he's out there in the silence and in awe of the beauty, as the Earth, as he's also they're moving around the Earth at the same time, with the Earth spinning, whatever's going on, and he's seeing, there's the Pacific Ocean, and there's Los Angeles, and there's New York, and the Atlantic Ocean. Oh my gosh, there's North Africa. So as he's tuning into all of that, he said, I began to realize my identity is with the whole thing. An awakening in an astronaut. My identity is with the whole thing. I get God bumps every time I think about that. He said, I looked down and I couldn't see borders. I saw it as a whole, and it's so beautiful. Yet people are killing each other over some imaginary line. I wish I could take individuals from each side in various conflicts, one in each hand, up into space and say, look at our Earth from this perspective and tell me what's important. He goes on to say, in doing the spacewalk, being in that incredible silence and beauty, I felt I was a sensing point for humanity. A sensing point for humanity. He said, I recognized that we are all a piece of this total life. And Gerald Hopkins wrote, the world is charged with the grandeur of God. Rusty, I believe, was experiencing that grandeur from his perspective. So between the reflections of the astronauts, because he isn't the only one, there are others too that had very similar experiences. The reflections of the astronauts, and then those images. I remember those images that were being shown on TV, projected from space, transformed human consciousness. had an impact. And so was birthed the environmental movement, Earth Day, and a love affair with Mother Earth, or Gaia, beginning to see it as a living thing. So I'm going to go a step further now, and this is from Thomas Troward. I'm helping us continue to expand and expand and expand. And this is from Thomas Troward. Thomas Troward was one of the key influences on Ernest Holmes. And he wrote, because the originating life principle, also known as God, he called it the originating life principle, is infinite, it is a single unit. He's talking about wholeness. It's a single unit. And consequently, where it is at all, the whole of it must be present. Look around you. The wholeness of God is present in everyone around you. It's mind-blowing, but it's because of the indivisible nature of the divine. Means that right here where we are, that means that we have access to all possibility and all potentiality. We can draw upon that through our awareness. That's why meditation is so important. That's why our prayer life is so important. And this beautiful tool that we call visioning, which is an opportunity to tap into that universal mind to guide us. So the allness of God is the allness of us, individually and collectively. And as we embrace that wholeness, as we open our minds and expand our minds to this perception of wholeness, we're healing presence wherever we show up. Wherever we show up. So that's the perception of wholeness. So the caring of the world's soul. So another story. This one's about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt, during the toughest time of his administration, had a certain practice that he would do at the end of the day. What he would do is he would take the members of his staff and walk outside. And I'm sure this was before everything was so lit up that you couldn't see the night sky in cities. But he would take them out, walk outside, and search the night sky until he found the great square of Pegasus. And then he would recite these same lines every night. Pointing to Pegasus, he would say, "This is the spiral galaxy in Andromeda. It is as large as our Milky Way. It is one of 100 million galaxies," and we know there are even more than that now. "It consists of 100 billion suns, even larger than our own." And then he would smile and look at his staff and say, "Now, I think we can handle our problems. Let's go to bed." Roosevelt knew that if he and his staff took this broader perspective, this perspective of the grandeur and the magnificence of the universe, that they would all sense that there was this one brilliant mind guiding them too as well, as they did their part in the unfolding of the potential of our great nation and the potential of our planet, of all humanity. The perception of wholeness, universal wholeness, the perception of universal wholeness helps us enter into a state of awe and wonder, and tends to conjure up and pull forth that already present faith and trust that is within us, of trust and faith in something greater. And so as we each heal our misconceptions of who we are and who others are, as we let go of those ideas that we're somehow lacking, we're somehow limited, or we're somehow not good enough, or somehow we're not worthy, and all that other nonsense, self-induced nonsense. That's what the real meaning of sin is, right? Self-induced nonsense. We don't use that term here, but anyway, self-induced nonsense. As we let go of that, as we heal ourselves of that and embrace our wholeness, we are stepping into what is called self-realization, illumination, enlightenment. And Charles Fillmore called it at-one-ment. You've heard the term atonement, right? Well, he would call it at-one-ment and put little hyphens between it. At-one-ment, completion, perfection, wholeness, repose, resting in God. Fillmore also goes on to write, at-one-ment with God brings lasting joy that cannot be taken away. Brings lasting joy that cannot be taken away. So to this I add, as we embrace our wholeness, as we embrace at-one-ment with the divine, we are not only caring for our own soul, but we are caring for the world soul, because we are all one. Caring for the world soul. And enriching human consciousness. So, to conclude, I'm going to ask you, what is your daily practice for developing the perception of wholeness? How important is it to you to develop this? I am trusting that after this month of focusing on wholeness, that you will be so excited when you wake up in the morning that you will say, okay, I'm ready to do my spiritual practice. Or whenever it works for you throughout the day. But there'll be this excitement to do your part. And so for me, I love contemplating the vastness of the universe, like Watson. And I also love contemplating the beauty of the earth. Even just looking out my window, looking out these windows, there's so much beauty, even in a winter tree. I learned that after moving up north. Somebody said it's the trees are showing their bones, so we get to see their bones. But as I contemplate the beauty of the earth, like the astronauts, I'm expanding, I'm developing that perception of wholeness. And as I study the great spiritual masters, whether it is Rumi, or Buddha, or Jesus of Nazareth, or Thomas Troward, or Emma Curtis Hopkins, or Ernest Holmes, as I study these great mystics, I help myself to expand in this consciousness of wholeness. And so recently, actually a couple of days ago, I said, okay, it's time to start using the Science of Mind magazine, because they have a daily word, they have an inspiring thing for each day. And so I've begun doing that again before my meditation practice. And I did it in the room while I was preparing for today. And it's all about wholeness this month. So those daily things also reinforce what you learn here on Sunday. So it's a great way to reinforce the concepts in your daily meditation practice. Ernest Holmes actually recommended this type of meditation where you read something before and use it and take it in. It's contemplative meditation, really. Take it into your meditation practice so that it seeps deep into your subconscious mind. So whatever your practice is for developing wholeness, I'm knowing that you are coming to know this thing that we call God. It's about knowing God, knowing that I am that life, you are that life, we are that life. The only thing that is going on is that life. And then, and I love this quote, it's by a Sufi mystic called Bawa Muhayyad Din. He says, for those who have come to know God, the whole world is a prayer mat. So beautiful. That allness of God is right where each of us is, spurring us on to carry out our activities with spiritual certainty and to fulfill our unique mission on earth. We each have a unique mission here on earth, each one of us. We play a part in it. And the world is depending on us to do our part. Let's turn within in prayer. And breathe. Let's do some yawning and stretching too. Getting our brains fully online. And I say, glory, hallelujah. The presence of wholeness, of the divine, is right here where we are. The totality of that creator of this amazingly vast universe is right here where we are as our very own being, informing us, guiding us, directing us, nurturing us, supporting us, giving us new ideas, new possibilities, new potentials that we can bring into expression. And so being aware of that, allowing ourselves to expand into who we are in truth. We are illumined, we are enlightened, we are experiencing at-one-ment. And we are resting in God. We are resting in repose. We are poised in that deliciousness of divine life. And in this place, love, joy, peace thrives in us. Wisdom thrives in us. And so I know that's what is happening right here and right now within each one of us, as each one of our, every layer, level, area, and aspect of our being is reverberating with this idea of wholeness, of at-one-ment. And so I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. I'm feeling it, and I'm knowing when I open my eyes, I get to see the light in this room radiating from each one of us. I'm so grateful for this. I release this word to the action of universal law, the law of God, not some of the law, the entire law, the entire creative power of God. And trust that it is done. I let it be, and I invite us to accept it with a powerful yes, and so it is.